Welcome to the homestead. Glad you're watching. Well,
We'll start out this morning by working on this retaining wall, kind of where I left off last night, actually. Let's get to it. Okay, so apparently somewhere along the lines we mismeasured, but that's okay. We've got another piece that we just drug out of the wood pile. We'll have to do a little work to it to make it match the ones that are already there, but that's what we do here. I'll cut the top board. I'll repair with one of these. Oh, looks like way taller. What did I do wrong? I cut it off where we said. It's narrower by a whole board. I cut it wrong and then put it back together. I narrowed it up by one board instead of shortening it by one board. I don't know how I did that. You know, put it on the ground, turned it around, lost my mind. Anyway, I got to fix it.
Okay, sun's gone down. It's dropping below the trees, and when it gets too far, it'll be pitch dark. I got this one that Lee just finished to do, and I've got to go over those boards that I just was slapping right there because I ran out of paint. He went to go get me more paint. So I'll be finishing that one really, really quick because there's nothing to it. And then I will get to this one that Lee put together. What's wrong? Right there, that Lee put together. And we'll get that painted up. They'll be dry, and then we'll secure them tomorrow. I really was hoping it'd be done today, but you know, it's us, and we are just not that fast apparently. Anyway, we've got to determine how far down to go with it. We have to make those adjustments because Lee cut the wrong side of the board and made that one shorter than it was, and so unfortunately, that's too bad for us because I really kind of think that extra 6 inches was needed, but it'll be fine. I think we're going to push everything down that way because this side down here doesn't have a big slope. It's a small slope. We still want to go over the edge of the corner because the storm shelter's right there, and we need that dirt right there, and so eventually we're going to need to pile it back up. It all slid off. It was the shallow side anyway. Most of the dirt the guy dug out came from that side. And therefore, when he pushed it all back, that's where we ended up with a heck of a lot of dirt. And I'm talking a lot of dirt. And so it goes off from the storm shelter good 8 feet, although it slopes down, but still 8 feet. And over here, it only goes like, I think I measured 44 inches or something. So half of the depth over here. So anyway, we're going to try to cut some of that off. I mentioned it to you earlier, but not today, not tomorrow, not in the near future, because we've got other things to do. Here's my paint. I better keep going. Okay, I used every bit of that paint, and along the edge I did get some dirt in my paintbrush, but no big deal. I'm throwing this paintbrush away. It was old and kind of crusty when I first started. Now it's not, but no more paint. And so we're done painting. We're done for the day. We'll finish it up tomorrow. I'm real pleased with the way it's looking, and I'm so pleased that it's going to be done. And then we'll move on to something else. But tomorrow morning, back at it. God bless y'all. Thank you for watching. You be sure to like, share, press that notification bell, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time on the homestead. Bye-bye now.